In Lagos, power wears a diamond smile, and Helena wears it better than anyone. She built an empire from grief, stitched her name into marble, and trusts only the quiet man behind the wheel, David. But one strange night suspicion grips her like a fist. Why does he vanish the moment the mansion gates close? Why that small secret bag? When Helena follows his taillights into the city's forgotten streets, she expects betrayal. Instead, she sees a frail woman, a bright-eyed boy, and a face that mirrors her late brother. In a single heartbeat, loyalty, blood, and pride collide. If the truth is what it seems, Helena must choose protect the family's glittering name or rescue the child the family erased. Before we begin, tell me where you're watching from and your local time right now in the comments. And if powerful African stories with love, class, and redemption move, you hit subscribe so you never miss the next twist. Helena's story began in the tall glass towers of Lagos, where power and pride live side by side. To the world, she was an untouchable queen, an elegant billionaire whose name could sway boardrooms and silence enemies with a single glance. She had survived the death of her husband, wrestled greedy relatives who wanted to snatch her empire, and raised a daughter who now studied abroad. Every headline called her the Iron Lady of Lagos. And indeed, Helena carried herself like iron strong, unbending, polished for display. But behind the steel was a woman who feared one thing above all: betrayal. Money she could replace, respect she could fight to regain, but betrayal cut in places no riches could heal. She had lived long enough to know that betrayal often came not from strangers, but from those closest, those she trusted. And for the last 3 years, the man closest to her daily life was her driver, David. David was unlike most men who worked in her orbit. He was quiet, disciplined, and never careless with his words. He drove her through traffic jams to meetings to Sunday services, always with steady hands on the wheel and eyes fixed firmly ahead. Never once did he ask for favors. Never once did he complain about the long hours. In truth, Helena respected him more than she admitted. He seemed incorruptible. Yet it was her best friend Maris who planted the seed of doubt. That evening, as they sat in Helena's lavish living room sipping steaming hibiscus tea, Maris leaned forward with the weight of a whisper. "Helena, don't you find it strange, that driver of yours, David? He never lingers after work. The moment you step out of the car, he vanishes. No chat with the guards, no smile, no life beyond his duty. Doesn't that trouble you?" Helena frowned. "Maris, for 3 years, this man has served me without a single blemish. He has never stolen even a coin, never raised his voice, never even looked at me twice. You know I value men who don't gossip, who don't meddle." Maris shook her head slowly. "My sister in this Lagos, it is always the one you least expect. Kidnapping, betrayal, they come from the shadows of loyalty. You are too wealthy, too visible. Be careful. What if he carries your secrets out of this gate every night? What if he feeds wolves with the knowledge of your life?" Helena set her cup down sharply. The words pierced like cold glass against her skin. She wanted to brush them off, but the truth was undeniable. David always disappeared too quickly. Unlike her other staff, he never lingered at the gates, never traded jokes with the guards, never accepted an evening snack from the cook. He simply vanished. That night, Helena's dinner tasted like ashes. Her mansion, though grand, felt strangely empty, the ticking of the clock mocking her doubts. Maris's words echoed in her mind. What if he is hiding something? By morning, her suspicion had hardened into resolve. When David picked her up for a business meeting, Helena studied him from the back seat. His tall frame sat straight, his broad shoulders steady, his dark skin gleaming faintly under the Lagos Sunday. His hands gripped the wheel as if molded from stone. She noticed the way his jaw tightened whenever she spoke, as if holding back words he dared not release. "David," she asked, suddenly leaning forward, "how long have you worked with me now?" 3 years, madam," he replied, without turning his head. 3 years. And in all that time, not once have I complained. But tell me, why do you always rush home? Don't you have friends in this compound? Don't you ever sit to relax? His lips pressed together. "I like to go straight home, madam. I don't waste time." Helena narrowed her eyes. "Straight home every single day. What are you rushing to do there?" There was a pause. His grip on the wheel tightened until the leather groaned under his palms. Then in a steady voice he answered, "Just to rest, madam. That is all." But Helena was no fool. She saw the flicker in his eyes, the crack in his composure. His voice was steady, yes, but his silence screamed louder. That evening, when they returned from the meeting, Helena decided to test him. Instead of stepping out of the car immediately, she lingered in the back seat, pretending to scroll through her phone. "Madam, we have reached," David said, his voice low. "I know. she replied curtly, refusing to move. For 10 long minutes, she stayed her presence weighing on the air. Finally, she opened the door slowly and stepped down, pretending to have forgotten her purse inside. She turned sharply just in time to see him. David had already killed the engine, pulled out a small, worn bag from under the seat, and was striding quickly towards the gate. His steps were urgent, almost desperate, as though time itself was chasing him. Helena's heart jolted. So it's true, he hides something from me. At dinner that night, the mansion felt colder than ever. She sat at the long dining table alone, her fork untouched on the porcelain plate. Her daughter was miles away, her friends gone, and all she had was the echo of Maris's warning. She slammed her spoon down and whispered fiercely to herself, "No more guessing. I must see with my own eyes." The decision was made. She would not confront David yet. Instead, she would follow him. The next evening, she prepared herself like a hunter. She left her black SUV behind and instead chose an older gray Lexus from her garage, anonymity over luxury. She wrapped a simple scarf around her head, slipped on dark glasses, and gave her staff strict orders not to question her. When David dropped her home as usual, she pretended to walk inside. The moment he drove out, she slipped into her Lexus, ordered the gates open quietly, and followed from a safe distance. Her heart pounded harder with each turn of the wheel. This was not the life she knew. Helena was used to being followed, admired, feared. Never had she imagined herself tailing a man like a detective. Yet here she was chasing shadows into the restless night of Lagos. The city roared around her horns, blaring motorbikes, weaving recklessly, hawkers knocking on windows with trays of roasted plantain. But Helena's eyes never left the glowing taillights of David's car. "Steady," she whispered to herself. "Don't let him notice." The deeper he drove, the stranger it became. David did not head towards the wealthy estates where many of her staff lived. He did not go to a bar or a club or even a hotel. Instead, his car slipped into narrow streets where the asphalt broke into potholes, where dim lamps flickered against cracked houses. Helena's chest tightened. What is he doing here? Children ran barefoot across dusty lanes. Women crouched over smoking pots by the roadside, frying akara and roasted yam. The smell of smoke and gutter water filled the air. This was a world Helena had never entered, a world her money had shielded her from. Still, she followed, her hands trembling on the wheel. At last, David slowed, parking beside a broken wooden fence. He stepped out carrying the same small bag she had seen before. Looking around briefly, he walked through a rusted gate that squealed as it opened, then disappeared inside a small compound. Helena's breath caught. This was no hideout for criminals, no secret rendezvous for betrayal. This was a slum house, tiny, fragile, a place no one of her wealth would ever imagine her driver to call home. She parked at a distance, lowering her seat slightly, her eyes locked on the dim light that flickered on inside. Shadows moved across cracked windows. Then through the torn curtain she saw him. David bent down by a bed where an old woman lay weak and coughing. He held her hand gently, poured water into a cup, lifted it to her lips. Her body trembled, frail as paper, but his care was steady, almost tender. Helena leaned forward, her mouth dry. This was not betrayal. This was devotion. Then a sound broke her heart wide open, a boy's laughter. A little boy no more than 7 ran into David's arms, clutching him tightly around the neck. David laughed softly, lifting him, spinning him once before, settling him on his lap. The boy's cheeks glowed with youth, his bright eyes shining even in the dim light. Helena's own eyes widened. The child's face, it was a face she knew. Round cheeks, sharp chin eyes that sparkled with a mischief she remembered from long ago. Her hands shook on the steering wheel. "No," she whispered, pressing a trembling hand to her mouth. "It cannot be." The boy looked like her late brother when he was a child. The night air pressed heavy against her chest as tears threatened to spill. She had come chasing suspicion, expecting to uncover betrayal. Instead, she had stumbled upon a truth that could shatter her pride, her family, her entire world. Her voice cracked as she whispered into the night, "David, what are you hiding from me?" Her world had just tilted, and nothing would ever be the same again. The night Helena returned to her mansion after trailing David into the slums, her heart thudded like a war drum. She sat in her living room, the chandelier above her, casting golden light over the marble floor, but she felt no warmth in its glow. The images replayed endlessly in her mind, the frail old woman coughing on that wooden bed, David kneeling beside her with such tenderness, and the child, oh, that boy with eyes that carried the unmistakable spark of her late brother. Helena's spoon clattered against her plate untouched. Her appetite had fled with her peace. For the first time in years, she felt powerless. She, the woman who had stood unshaken against greedy relatives and ruthless business rivals, now trembled at the sight of a little boy. Her phone buzzed on the table. It was Maris. With shaky fingers, she answered. "Helena, have you done it?" Maris's voice was sharp with curiosity. Helena swallowed. "Yes, I followed him." And Helena closed her eyes, gripping the edge of her seat. He did not meet with criminals. He did not enter a club or a hotel. He went to a small, broken house. There was a sick old woman and a boy. Her voice broke. Maris, the boy, he looked exactly like Oba. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. "Oba, you mean your brother? Are you certain?" Helena's tears finally slipped free, hot against her cheeks. "I know my family's face when I see it. The boy carries his blood, I could swear it." Maris's voice dropped low. "This is serious, Helena. But calm yourself. Don't confront him tonight. Sleep on it. Tomorrow speak to him when your head is clear." Helena ended the call without replying. Her chest felt like stone. She barely slept that night, tossing between memories of her brother and the haunting image of the boy's bright eyes. She remembered Oba as a young man, handsome, arrogant, reckless. He was adored by women, spoiled by their parents, and known for squandering every blessing. She remembered whispers, rumors of a woman he had left behind. She had dismissed them then, but now after what she had seen, the whispers screamed truth. By dawn, Helena's mind was set. She could no longer live with shadows. She would face David. The morning light streamed through her golden curtains, mocking her unrest. She sat in her private office, a space lined with glass cabinets holding her awards and shelves filled with books. She pressed the intercom. "Tell David to come." Minutes later, he entered dressed in his neat uniform. He bowed. "Good morning, madam." Helena's sharp eyes scanned him. Calm face, steady voice. But beneath those dark eyes, she saw exhaustion, perhaps guilt. She gestured at the chair across from her desk. "Sit." David hesitated. "Madam, you don't usually—" "Sit," she snapped. He obeyed, lowering himself carefully. Silence thickened the air until it was almost unbearable. Finally, Helena leaned forward, her voice like ice. "David, I followed you yesterday." His eyes widened. His lips parted as if to speak, but she raised a hand sharply. "Don't interrupt me. I saw where you went. I saw the old woman. I saw the boy. Now you will tell me everything. Who are they to you?" David's throat bobbed. His hands tightened together. For a long moment he said nothing. Then in a voice laced with pain he whispered, "Madam, I never meant to deceive you. I only wanted to protect them." Protect them from what? Helena's voice cracked like a whip. "From shame," he said softly. Helena's nails dug into the armrest of her chair. "What shame?" David lifted his eyes, his voice trembling but steady. "That woman is Nella. Years ago she was in a relationship with your late brother Oba. He left her when she became pregnant. He abandoned her to carry the burden alone." Helena shot up to her feet, fury blazing in her chest. "Lies, my brother may have had flaws, but he was no coward. He would never abandon a child." David did not flinch. He met her eyes with quiet strength. "He did, madam." She begged him, she cried, but he turned his back. "She was cast out. Even your family denied her. I saw it with my own eyes." Helena gasped as if struck. Her mind swam. She wanted to scream at him to silence his words, but her heart whispered that it was true. She remembered those days, the rumors, the hushed arguments, the sudden silence whenever she entered a room. She had buried it all under work, under pride, under loyalty to her brother's memory. Her breath came in quick, shallow gasps. "And the boy, that child I saw, who is he?" David's eyes softened. His voice cracked. "He is Oba's son. He is your nephew." Helena's knees weakened. She collapsed back into her chair, her chest heaving. My nephew?" "Yes, madam," David said quietly. "His name is Toby." The words hung in the room like thunder. Helena pressed her trembling hands to her face, choking on a sob. "God, no. This cannot be true." She dropped her hands, glaring at David. "And you, what are you to them? Why are you the one caring for them?" David's voice was low. "I met Nella years ago. She was struggling, mocked by neighbors, abandoned by your family. I pitied her. I helped when I could. Over time, I became like family. Toby grew up calling me father, though I am not his blood. I could not break his heart by telling him the truth that his father rejected him, that his family cast him aside." Helena's tears burned hot. "So while I feasted in marble halls, my brother's child rotted in a slum. And you, my driver, kept this secret from me." David's eyes glistened. I feared you would hate him. I feared you would call him a bastard like others did. I wanted to protect him from more rejection. Helena slammed her fist against the table. Do you know who I am? That boy is my blood, my brother's son, and you kept him hidden from me like some dirty secret. David's voice rose for the first time. Because your family rejected them before I saw it. I stood there the day Neela knelt at your parents' gate heavy with child begging for help. They shut the door in her face. They called her a liar, a disgrace. I swore that day I would never let Toby grow up believing he was unwanted. Helena staggered back, her chest burning. Her parents, her proud, respected parents. She shook her head violently, but her tears betrayed her. She remembered faintly that night, the whispers, the slammed doors, the way her father's face had twisted in anger. She had turned away, then pretending not to see. Now the truth cut through her like glass. For a long moment the office was silent, except for Helena's ragged breathing. Finally she whispered, "You should have told me." David bowed his head. "Forgive me, madam. I feared your wrath. I feared your pride. I thought silence was safer." Helena's shoulders trembled. She pressed her palms against her desk, whispering brokenly, "Oba, what have you done?" The image of her late brother filled her mind, his charm, his arrogance, his laughter. She had defended him, loved him, worshipped him despite his flaws. And now the truth lay bare, he had abandoned his own child. Her tears spilled freely, staining her desk. At last she looked up, her voice quivering but firm. "Tomorrow you will take me to that boy. I will look into his eyes myself, and if he is Oba's son, then he will never live in shadows again." David bowed silently. His eyes glistened, but relief flickered within them. That night, Helena sat alone in her grand mansion, her wealth surrounding her like a cage. For the first time in her life, she felt small, broken. She poured herself a glass of wine, but her hands trembled too much to lift it. She stared into the darkness, haunted by the image of a little boy with her brother's smile. Her world had shifted, and she knew nothing would ever be the same again. The morning air was heavy, though. The skies were clear above Lagos. Helena awoke before dawn, her eyes swollen from a night without sleep. For a woman who had built empires on discipline and control, losing sleep felt like surrender. Yet her mind had been a battlefield, memories of her late brother Oba, the haunting image of the child, the raw honesty in David's trembling voice. She sat at the edge of her bed, staring at the golden curtains, swaying gently. Today, she whispered, her throat tight, "I will see him again. Today, I will know the truth with my own eyes." She ate no breakfast. Instead, she dressed in a simple but elegant gown, her face bare of makeup for the first time in years. She wanted no mask today. In her private office, she pressed the intercom. "Tell David to come." Minutes later, David entered quietly. His uniform was neat, but his eyes betrayed a sleepless night as well. He bowed. "Good morning, madam." Helena's gaze was sharp, though her heart trembled. "Today you will take me there, to Nella, to the boy." David froze, then nodded slowly. "Yes, madam." The drive was silent, filled with unspoken weight. Helena sat in the back, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She noticed how David's grip on the steering wheel tightened whenever their eyes met in the mirror. Yet his driving was steady, cautious as always. Soon the city's glittering skyline faded behind them, replaced by narrow, cracked roads, rusted rooftops, and the relentless hum of life in the slums. Children played barefoot by open drains, women balanced trays of fruit on their heads, men argued loudly by roadside stalls. Helena's chest tightened. This was not her world. She had built walls of glass and steel to protect herself from it. Yet here she was, stepping into shadows her family had long buried. David finally slowed, turning into the same broken compound she had spied on days earlier. He parked carefully, then stepped out to open her door. "Madam," he said softly, "we are here." Helena's heels clicked against the dusty ground as she stepped down. The smell of smoke and gutter water filled her nostrils. The cracked gate creaked open as David led her inside. In the dimly lit room, Neela sat on a weak wooden chair, her thin body draped in a faded wrapper. Her cough rattled the air. But when her tired eyes lifted and met, Helena's something like recognition flickered there. Beside her stood the boy, Toby. His small hands clutched a piece of bread, his bright eyes darting curiously to the regal woman who had entered his world. He tilted his head the exact way Oba once did as a child. Helena froze. Her breath caught in her throat. She wanted to deny it, to claim her eyes deceived her. But the truth shone in that child's face, the curve of his cheeks, the mischievous light in his gaze. It was Oba. Oba reborn in this little boy. Her knees weakened. She steadied herself against the wall, whispering, "God, it's true." David glanced at her, his expression torn between relief and sorrow. "Madam, this is Nella, and this is Toby." Neela's lips trembled. "Good day, Ma," she whispered hoarsely, her voice cracked with years of pain. I never thought I would see you here." Helena swallowed hard, forcing strength into her voice. "You should have been brought here long ago. You are family." Neela's eyes filled with tears, but she shook her head. "Your family cast me out. They called me liar. They called my son a curse." Her thin shoulders trembled. "If not for David, we would have died. He carried the shame your brother left behind. He carried what your family refused." Helena's heart clenched. She wanted to argue to defend her family, but she could not. The truth hung heavy in the air, undeniable. Toby stepped forward, his small slippers slapping against the cracked floor. He looked up at Helena boldly. "Are you Mama's friend?" he asked innocently. Helena's lips quivered. She bent down slowly, cupping his face in her hands. Tears blurred her vision. "Yes, my son," she whispered. "I am your auntie." The boy smiled shyly, but his eyes sparkled with curiosity. He tugged her hand. "Do you live in that big car outside?" Helena choked on a sob, brushing his cheek with trembling fingers. "Yes, and from today you will never want again." Neela broke into quiet tears. "Madam, please," she whispered, "don't give me false hope. I have lived too long in shadows. Let me die quietly, but spare my boy. Let him shine." Helena turned sharply to David. "Prepare the car. They are coming with me." David's eyes widened. "Madam, are you certain? Your family?" "I don't care," Helena snapped, her voice fierce. "That boy carries Oba's blood. He will not rot in a slum while I live in a palace." She helped Nella to her feet. The woman trembled, her body frail, but there was a spark of dignity in her eyes. Toby clung to Helena's gown, his small hand warm against her own. As they stepped out of the compound, neighbors gaped. Some whispered, some laughed. Others watched in silence as the elegant billionaire led the forgotten woman and her child into a waiting car. Helena felt their stares, but she held her head high. Back at the mansion, the gates swung open wide. The guards exchanged stunned glances. The staff peeked from corners, whispering in shock. Never before had their madam brought strangers into her home, let alone from the slums. Inside, Helena gave sharp orders. "Prepare the guest wing. Fresh sheets, clean clothes, hot food. Now." Within hours, Neela lay on a soft bed for the first time in years. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "I never thought I would see this day." Helena sat at her bedside, guilt etched deep in her eyes. "Forgive us. I cannot change the past, but I will change today. You will not suffer again." Meanwhile, Toby ran around the spacious room, his laughter bouncing against marble walls. He stopped, suddenly staring at Helena with wide eyes. "Auntie," he asked innocently, "is this really your house?" Helena's chest ached. She bent down, pulling him into her arms. "Yes, my son, and from today it is your house too." But peace was short-lived. By evening, word had spread. Helena's younger sister, Amora, stormed into the mansion, her voice dripping with fury. Behind her came their elder brother Uche, his walking stick striking the floor like thunder. Helena Amora's voice cracked the air. "What nonsense have I heard that you brought her here, that bastard child?" Uche slammed his stick. "Have you lost your senses? To parade Oba's shame in our home? Do you know what society will say?" Helena rose, her eyes blazing. "Enough. He is not a shame, he is blood, he is family. Whether you like it or not, he belongs here." Amora scoffed. "You think your wealth gives you the right to rewrite history? This is madness. If the world hears, we will be ruined." Helena slammed her palm on the table, her voice thunderous. "Let the world hear, I will not bury the truth any longer. That boy is Oba's son, and I will protect him with everything I have." The room shook with silence. Even the staff held their breath. Nella wept quietly in a corner, and Toby clung to Helena's gown, his wide eyes filled with fear. Helena bent down, holding him close. Her voice softened, but carried steel. "You are mine now, my son. No one will cast you aside again." The battle lines were drawn. The war within the family had begun. The mansion no longer felt like home. It felt like a battlefield. For days after Amora and Uche stormed through her doors, Helena could not escape the echoes of their voices. Shame, bastard, madness. The words clawed at the marble walls, sinking into her heart. Yet every time she looked at Toby, his bright eyes, his innocent laughter, his tiny hand reaching for hers, she knew she could not turn back. Helena, the Iron Lady of Lagos, had made her choice. But she underestimated how violently her family would resist. The following morning, Amora returned, this time with two of their uncles in tow. Their stern faces carried years of family pride etched deep into every wrinkle. They stood in Helena's grand lounge, their voices raised in condemnation. Helena Uncle Keen thundered, his gray beard trembling as he spoke. "You have disgraced us all. To bring that woman and her child into this house, do you know what this means? Every enemy of our family will laugh. Every newspaper will feast on this scandal." Helena stood tall, dressed in a simple gown, her eyes unflinching. "Let them laugh. Let them write their stories. But this child, Oba's child, will not be thrown away again. Not while I live." Amora hissed, her eyes flashing. "So this is it? You will destroy everything we built just to play savior to some street boy?" Before Helena could answer, a small voice pierced the room. "Stop shouting at my mama." All eyes turned. Toby stood near the doorway. His small fists clenched, his face flushed with bravery. His thin voice trembled, but it carried more truth than all the shouts of the adults. "She is not a curse," he cried, pointing toward Nella, who sat coughing weakly on the sofa. "She is the best mama in the world, and David takes care of us, not you. You don't know us, so don't insult us." The room froze. Even Helena's powerful siblings were struck silent by the audacity of a 7-year-old. Helena's eyes flooded with tears as she bent down, scooping Toby into her arms. She pressed his small head to her chest, whispering, "My brave boy, my son." Then she turned to her family, her voice blazing like fire. "Do you hear him? Even this child has more courage than all of you. He speaks truth without fear, while you hide behind pride and reputation. You may call him shame, but I call him family, and I will protect him with everything I have." Uche slammed his stick on the floor, his voice booming. "Then you will stand alone, Helena. Alone against us, against society, against the world." Helena lifted her chin proudly, her voice steady as steel. "Then so be it. I would rather stand alone with truth than stand together with lies." Her words rang through the hall like thunder. Her siblings stormed out, their curses echoing against the marble. Neela wept silently, and Toby buried his face in Helena's gown, trembling from the storm he had witnessed. When the doors slammed shut, silence fell over the mansion. Helena held the boy tighter, whispering fiercely into his ear, "Do not fear, my son. They may abandon us, but I will never let you go." That night, Helena sat alone in her room, staring at a framed photograph of Oba. His charming smile mocked her from the gilded frame. She pressed it to her chest, whispering through tears, "You left this boy to suffer, and now they want me to leave him too. But I will not. I cannot." Her phone buzzed. It was Maris. "Helena, the whole street is talking. They say your siblings stormed your house today. Are you sure you can bear this storm?" Helena wiped her tears, her voice firm. "Let them talk. Let the whole city talk. That boy is my nephew. He is my blood, and I will not abandon him like the rest did." There was a pause then. Maris whispered, "I admire you, my friend. But be careful. They will not stop. They will fight you even if it means destroying you." "I am ready," Helena replied, her voice sharp with determination. "Let them try me." The storm came quickly. Within a week, whispers spread beyond family walls. Newspapers carried scandalous headlines: "Billionaire's driver brings love child into mansion. Oba's hidden shame exposed as Helena being deceived by her staff." At business meetings, Helena felt the eyes of her partners on her, their smiles polite but their whispers poisonous. At a charity gala, guests murmured behind her back, some daring to ask directly, "Helena, is it true? Did you really bring your brother's bastard into your home?" Helena smiled tightly, refusing to answer, but inside the words cut deep. At church, too, the whispers grew louder. One Sunday after service, her pastor approached gently. "Sister Helena, many are talking. They say you are staining your family name. Are you sure this path is wise?" Helena's eyes filled with fire. "Pastor, is it unwise to care for a child of my blood? Is it unwise to give shelter to my brother's son? If the church calls that unwise, then perhaps the church has forgotten what love is." The pastor bowed, his head silenced. Back home, David faced his own battles. Some staff whispered behind his back, mocking him. One even said to his face, "We know your plan. You think you can use that boy to climb into riches, but you will fail." David clenched his fists, but said nothing. That evening, Helena noticed his silence. "What is it, David?" she asked. He hesitated before sighing. "They say I am using you, that I brought the boy to trick you." Helena's face hardened. She stepped closer, her voice fierce. "Let them talk. I know the truth. I know your heart. That is enough for me." Her words broke him. He bowed his head, tears glistening in his eyes, but still Helena knew the battle was far from over. The real blow came from her own blood. One morning, Uche summoned the family to a meeting in their late parents' ancestral home. The grand dining hall was filled with relatives, sisters, uncles, cousins. The air was thick with judgment. When Helena entered, silence fell. Uche rose slowly, leaning on his walking stick. "Helena," he began, his voice heavy with authority, "we are here because of your reckless decision. You have dragged a stain into our bloodline. You have shamed us before the world. If you continue, we will cut ties with you. We will strip you of inheritance. You may be rich, but you cannot carry this family name alone." Helena scanned the room, her gaze sharp, her heart burning. Then she rose slowly, her voice calm but unshakable. "Do what you will. Cut ties if you must. But know this, I would rather stand alone with truth than stand together with lies." Gasps filled the hall. Some looked at her with admiration, others with fury, but Helena did not flinch. She turned her heels, striking the marble floor like drums of war, and walked out without looking back. The family had declared war. But Helena knew this was a battle worth fighting. That night, as Toby curled up in her lap, his small voice trembled. "Auntie, are they going to send me away too?" Helena's heart shattered. She kissed his forehead, her tears falling into his hair. "No, my son, never. From today, I am your Auntie Mama, and I will never let you go." Toby smiled faintly, whispering, "Auntie Mama." The words pierced her soul, sealing a bond no storm could break. For the first time since Oba's death, Helena felt peace, not from wealth, not from reputation, but from love. But deep in her heart, she knew the storm had only just begun. The days that followed were like living under siege. Though Helena's mansion gleamed with marble floors and crystal chandeliers, it carried the silence of a battlefield after smoke has cleared. The staff moved carefully, whispering in corners, avoiding their madam's piercing gaze. Everyone knew the house was divided, not only against the outside world, but against Helena's own blood. Every morning brought new rumors. Newspapers painted half-truths, blogs invented lies. Billionaire's driver manipulates his boss with a secret child. Oba's shame resurrected by his sister. The headlines screamed from newsstands. Helena stopped reading them, but she could not stop the sting when whispers followed her in markets, in meetings, in church. Yet every evening when Toby ran into her arms, shouting Auntie Mama, the weight of gossip melted for a moment. She would hug him tightly, inhaling the smell of childhood on his hair, reminding herself why she fought. Still, the battle pressed hard. One night after a long business meeting, Helena sat alone in her car outside the mansion gates. David waited at the wheel, quiet as ever, but she saw the way his knuckles whitened around the steering. "David," she said softly, her eyes fixed on the gates ahead. "What do they say about me in the streets?" His silence spoke volumes. "Tell me," she pressed. Finally, he exhaled heavily. "They say you have lost your mind. That grief for your brother has blinded you. That I have trapped you using Toby as bait to your heart." His voice broke slightly. "Some even say I plan to marry into your wealth through deception." Helena's jaw clenched. Fury rose in her chest, but not against him. She turned to him, her eyes blazing. "Let them talk. I know the truth. I know who you are, David, and that is enough." His lips trembled. He bowed his head. "Thank you, madam." But deep inside, Helena knew the storm outside her gates was gathering strength. It was not long before the storm arrived in full. Her brother Uche called a formal family council in their late parents' ancestral home. Helena went dressed in her finest silk, but with eyes hardened by weeks of battle. The great dining hall was packed. Her siblings, aunts, uncles, even distant cousins who barely spoke to her before. All had come united by pride, fueled by gossip. When Helena entered, the murmur fell silent. She stood tall at the end of the long table. Uche rose his walking stick, tapping the floor like a judge's gavel. "Helena," he began, "you have defied us all. You have dragged shame into this family. Today we demand that you end this madness. Send that woman and her child away. Restore dignity to our bloodline." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the hall. Helena's lips tightened. Restore dignity. And what of the dignity we buried years ago when Oba abandoned his own child? What of the shame of our silence? That boy is not shame, he is blood, and I will not abandon him. Her younger sister, Amora, slammed her palm on the table. "Stop twisting words. If Oba denied him, why should we carry him now? That child is a curse." Helena's voice thundered. "Enough. Do you want the sins of the father to bury the son? Are you so blinded by pride that you cannot see the truth?" A heavy silence followed. Then Uncle Keen cleared his throat. "Helena, nobody is saying the boy should die, but to parade him in our mansion, to raise him as one of us, society will mock us. Our name will rot in the mouths of strangers." Helena leaned forward, her eyes sharp as knives. Is society more important than blood? Do strangers feed us? Do they breathe for us? Let them talk. I will not sacrifice truth on the altar of reputation. The hall erupted in arguments. Some nodded toward Helena with respect, but most shouted her down, calling her reckless, arrogant, blinded by wealth. Finally, Uche slammed his stick. The hall fell silent. His voice shook with rage. Then hear this, Helena. If you continue on this path, you will stand alone. We will cut ties with you. You may be rich, but without us you will have no family. Helena straightened her chin high. Do what you will. Cut me off if you must. But know this, I would rather stand alone with truth than stand together with lies. Gasps filled the hall. Her words carved the line clear. The family had chosen pride. Helena had chosen love. Back at the mansion, David waited anxiously in the lounge. When Helena entered, her face was pale, but her eyes still burned with fire. Madam, he asked carefully, how did it go? She dropped her bag heavily onto the table, as expected. They threatened me. They said they would cut me off. David's jaw tightened. I am sorry, madam. I never meant to bring you such trouble. Helena turned sharply. Stop saying that. This is not your fault. This is Oba's fault. This is theirs, not yours. Her voice softened slightly. You did what none of us had the courage to do. You cared for him. Don't apologize for that. David bowed his head silent, but she saw the weariness in his shoulders, the way years of carrying another's shame had bent him quietly. The city, however, was less forgiving. Within weeks, the whispers turned to headlines and the headlines turned to knives. At a charity, gala whispers chased Helena across the hall. Elegant women in lace leaned toward each other, murmuring behind their jeweled hands. Men in suits smiled politely to her face, but their eyes gleamed with curiosity. One bolder guest approached her directly, his voice dripping with mockery. Helena, is it true what the papers say that you've adopted your driver's son? Helena's lips curled into a thin smile. It is true that I brought my brother's son into my home, and it is true that I will raise him with dignity. As for the rest, you may ask the gossips, they seem to know better than truth. The man faltered, embarrassed. Helena turned away gracefully, but her chest burned with rage. That night, as she sat in her car, the weight of the evening pressed on her shoulders. She clenched her fists, whispering, So this is the price of truth. Then so be it. I will pay it. At home, she found Toby waiting, bouncing on his small feet. Auntie Mama, he cried, running into her arms. His laughter filled the halls like sunlight piercing through storm clouds. Helena hugged him tightly, tears hiding in his hair. You don't know, my son, she whispered, how much war rages because of you. But you are worth it. Every battle is worth it. Neela lay weakly in bed, her cough worsening her frail body, trembling with each breath. She reached for Helena's hand, her voice hoarse. Madam, maybe it is too much. Maybe it is better to let things be. Helena shook her head fiercely, tears spilling. No, you have carried shame long enough. I will not let you carry it anymore. I will fight for him for you. Even if the whole world turns against me, I will fight. Neela's lips trembled, but her eyes softened with gratitude. For the first time in years, hope flickered across her tired face. But the storm had not yet finished gathering. In the weeks that followed, Helena's businesses suffered. Partners questioned her judgment, some pulling out of contracts, afraid of being tainted by scandal. Even church members whispered behind her back during service. The family sent more messages, ultimatums filled with venom. Send the boy away or lose us forever. Helena stood firm. Let them go. I will not let go of him. But every night when the mansion grew quiet, she stood before her mirror, staring at her own weary reflection. How long can I carry this fight? She whispered to the woman in the glass. How long before the world breaks me? Then, as if in answer, Toby's laughter would echo faintly from the guest wing, and her heart would steady again. I will not break, she whispered. I will not. For though the storm raged louder each day, Helena's resolve grew sharper, harder, like iron tempered by fire. The world could call her reckless, her family could call her traitor, society could call her mad, but she knew the truth, this boy was her blood, and no power on earth would take him from her arms again. The mansion was quiet, but not with peace, quiet like a storm that had just passed, leaving broken branches and heavy clouds. Every hallway carried whispers, every servant's step echoed with tension. Helena sat in her private lounge, her head bent low, her fingers pressed against her temples. She had faced rivals in boardrooms, political pressure, and the greedy claws of relatives after her husband's death. But this battle, this fight for a child who did not even know the weight of his bloodline, felt heavier than anything before. Nayla's health had worsened. The doctors Helena had summoned shook their heads with grim expressions. "We will do what we can, madam, but the sickness has spread too far. She is very weak." Their words struck Helena like a hammer. For years, this woman had carried shame alone, abandoned by her family and by Oba himself. And now, when truth had finally surfaced, life threatened to rob her of the little time left. Helena sat by Nella's bedside, holding her frail hand. "You must stay strong," she whispered. "Please, for Toby's sake." Neela's thin lips trembled into a faint smile. "Madam, you have already done more than I dreamed. You gave me dignity in my last days, but my time is near. Promise me, Helena. Promise me you will raise him with love. Do not let him carry the shame I carried." Helena's throat tightened. She squeezed Neela's hand fiercely, tears running down her face. "I promise. With my life, I promise. Toby will never walk alone again." At the foot of the bed, Toby sat silently, his wide eyes filled with confusion and fear. "Mama, don't sleep. Please, I need you." His small voice pierced the room. Neela stroked his cheek weakly. "My son, my Toby. Don't cry. You are strong. You are brave. And from today, you will never be alone. Your Auntie Mama will care for you." Her gaze shifted to Helena. With her last strength, she whispered, "He is yours now." Moments later, her chest rose one last time, then fell. Silence followed. Toby's cry shattered the air. "Mama, Mama, wake up, please!" He shook her arm, his tears soaking the faded wrapper she wore. Helena pulled him into her arms, rocking him as he sobbed. Her own tears fell freely, but her voice was steady as she whispered into his ear. "It's okay, my son. She is with God now. But you still have me. You will always have me." That night, after Nella's body had been taken away, a maid handed Helena a folded piece of paper. "Madam," she said softly, "we found this under her pillow." Helena's hands trembled as she opened it. The handwriting was shaky, but clear. "To Madam Helena, thank you for seeing us when the world refused. Thank you for giving me dignity in my last days. Please do not let Toby carry the shame I carried. Raise him with love. Let him know he belongs. May God bless you." Helena pressed the note to her chest, sobbing quietly. "Rest now, Neela," she whispered. "Rest. I will carry him. I will not fail you." The news of Nella's death spread quickly, but not with sympathy. By morning, Amora and Uche stormed into the mansion once again, their fury hotter than grief. "So this is what it has come to," Amora spat, her eyes sharp with contempt. "That woman is dead, and now you want to use her child to replace her, Helena. Can't you see you're dragging our name into the mud?" Uche's walking stick slammed against the polished floor. "Enough is enough. Send the boy away. Let him return to the shadows where he belongs. He is not part of us." Helena stood tall in the middle of the living room, Toby clinging tightly to her gown, his eyes still red from crying. Her gaze was fierce, her voice unshakable. "Say what you want, but hear me clearly. This boy is my blood. He will not go back to the streets. He will not live in shame again. He is Oba's son, and from this day he is mine." Amora laughed bitterly. "Yours? Do you want to adopt your driver's pet project? Do you want people to laugh at you? You, Helena, the Iron Lady, reduced to raising a bastard child?" Helena's eyes flashed like lightning. "Let them laugh. Let the whole world laugh. Their laughter cannot kill me, but abandoning him would kill my soul." She knelt down, cupping Toby's tear-streaked face in her hands. "Look at him. Look at his eyes. He is Oba's image. You can deny it all you want, but blood cannot lie. I will not throw him away." Uche raised his stick, pointing it at her like a weapon. "Then you stand alone, Helena. Don't count on us when people turn against you." Helena's chin lifted proudly. "I don't need you. I don't need anyone. I have enough to raise him, to protect him. You may turn your backs, but I will never turn mine." The argument raged, voices clashing like swords. Servants froze in corners, terrified. Toby buried his face against Helena's side, trembling. Finally, Helena's voice thundered through the mansion. "Enough. All of you leave my house. Leave now. If you cannot stand with truth, then get out of my sight." Her siblings stormed out, their anger echoing behind them. When the doors slammed, silence returned. Helena looked down at Toby. His lips trembled as he whispered, "Andy, are you going to leave me too?" Her heart shattered. She knelt before him, holding his small hands tightly. "No, my son, never. From today I am your Auntie Mama, and I will never let you go." His lips quivered. Then he whispered back, "Auntie Mama." The words pierced her soul. Helena pulled him into her arms, crying openly, her tears soaking his hair. "Yes, my son. Auntie Mama is here, and I will always be here." Weeks later, Helena sat with lawyers and her private lounge documents spread across the table. Her hands shook slightly as she signed the papers. With every stroke of her pen, she made it official. Toby was no longer just her nephew hidden in shadows. He was now her son, legally and publicly. When the final paper was stamped, she looked at Toby, who sat swinging his legs on a chair, his face shy but smiling. Her eyes filled with tears. "He may have been forgotten by Oba," she whispered to herself, "but he will never be forgotten by me." That night she stood by her window overlooking the glittering city lights. In her hand was Neela's note. She thought of the journey, the suspicion, the secret following the truth that had broken her heart, the fights with her siblings, the weight of society's scorn, and the choice she had made. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they were not tears of shame. They were tears of redemption. She whispered into the night, "Rest now, Neela. Rest now, Oba. I have him. He is safe. He will shine, and he will never walk alone again." The days that followed Toby's legal adoption were some of the most turbulent Helena had ever lived through. On the surface, the mansion gleamed, as it always had marble floors, polished chandeliers, glittering servants moving with practiced grace. But beneath the shine, shadows lurked. Every newspaper carried whispers about her decision. Every business meeting felt like a trial, and every family gathering those she was no longer invited to burn with fury against her. She had made enemies not only outside, but within her own blood. Yet in the heart of the storm, a strange peace bloomed. Each morning, Toby's voice echoed through the halls, "Auntie Mama, Auntie Mama." He ran to her, his small arms clinging tightly around her waist. His presence filled the mansion with a kind of warmth it had never known. Helena, who had once dined alone in silence, now shared laughter at the breakfast table. For every look of disdain the world cast her way, Toby's smile healed a piece of her bruised soul. Still, Helena knew the war was not over. One evening, while she was preparing for a charity gala, David entered her study hesitantly. His usually calm face carried lines of worry. "Madam," he began, "I think you should know. Your siblings are planning something. I overheard one of their aides speaking. They intend to challenge the adoption." Helena froze the necklace in her hand, slipping to the desk. "Challenge it? On what grounds?" David's jaw tightened. "They will claim you were manipulated, that I, your driver, conspired with Neela to trick you, that Toby is not Oba's son." Helena's eyes flashed with fury. Lies. Desperate, cowardly lies. David lowered his gaze. "Madam, they will not stop. They fear what it means if Toby stays under your roof. They fear losing power. They fear losing reputation." Helena straightened her voice sharp as steel. "Then let them fear. I will not bend. The law is on my side. More importantly, truth is on my side." David bowed slightly, but she saw the weight in his eyes. He had carried this secret for years, and now the burden of his loyalty threatened to crush him under public scorn. The gala that night was another battlefield. As Helena entered the grand hall, her white gown flowing behind her, she felt hundreds of eyes pierce her like daggers. Whispers rose like smoke. Some nodded politely, others turned their backs. One headline had just gone viral that morning. "Billionaire adopts driver's child. Is she losing her mind?" But Helena walked with her head high. She smiled graciously, shook hands, and carried herself like the queen the city knew her to be. Still, she caught fragments of conversations. "She's throwing her fortune away. They say the boy isn't even Oba's. Mark my words, that driver is after her wealth." Each whisper was a blade, but Helena endured. Later that evening, while speeches echoed in the hall, a woman approached her table. She was elegantly dressed, her lips curled in a smile too sharp to be friendly. "Helena," she purred, "such a brave move bringing that boy into your mansion. But tell me, are you sure he is really your brother's son, or are you just desperate for a story to soften your reputation?" The words stung, but Helena leaned forward, her eyes calm and steady. "Madam, the world may doubt, but I have seen his face. Blood does not lie, and reputation is not built on gossip, it is built on truth." The woman faltered, taken aback by Helena's fire. Helena rose gracefully, leaving the table with her head high, but inside her heart burned. At home, she found Toby asleep in her bed, curled up with a blanket too big for his small frame. She sat beside him, brushing a curl from his forehead. His tiny chest rose and fell peacefully, unaware of the storms raging outside these walls. Helena whispered into the darkness, "You are my strength, my son. They can strip me of wealth, of name, of family, but not of you. Never of you." But her siblings were not idle. Days later, a letter arrived, stamped with the family seal. Helena opened it with trembling hands. Inside, harsh words screamed from the page. Helena, you have dishonored us long enough. We cannot allow you to parade shame as truth. We demand a family tribunal to prove this child's bloodline. If you refuse, we will sever all ties publicly and strip you of inheritance. Choose wisely. Helena's fingers tightened around the letter. She wanted to tear it apart, but she forced herself to breathe. So it has come to this, she muttered. Maris, who was visiting that morning, placed a hand on her shoulder. Helena, think carefully. They are desperate. They want to corner you. Are you ready for this fight? Helena's eyes glistened, but her voice was firm. I was born ready. They think inheritance scares me. I built myself from ashes after my husband died. They think shame frightens me. I have faced more shame in this city than they ever could imagine. Let them bring their tribunal. I will face it. Maris nodded slowly, admiration flickering in her eyes. Then fight, my sister. But remember, you fight not only for yourself, but for that boy. Helena's voice softened. I know. And for him, I will never lose. The tribunal was held in the ancestral home in the same hall where Helena had once stood defiant. This time the room was fuller. Cousins, distant relatives, even family friends had gathered, eager to witness the scandal unfold. At the center, Helena stood tall, Toby holding her hand. David stood quietly behind them, his face shadowed with tension. Across the hall, Amora smirked with triumph. Uche leaned on his stick and the elders sat grim and stern. Uncle Keen's voice rang out. We are gathered to decide whether this boy is blood of our family or an impostor brought to disgrace us. Helena, speak your case. Helena's voice was steady. This boy is my brother's son. His face bears the mark of Oba's blood. Deny it all you want, but truth shines brighter than lies. I have taken him in not to disgrace us, but to redeem us from the shame of our silence. Amora sneered. Words. Helena, where is your proof? Gossip and resemblance are not proof. For all we know, this is your driver's child. Gasps rippled through the hall. David's fists clenched, but Helena raised a hand to silence him. Her voice thundered. Do not dare insult me with lies. David is not the father. He is the only man who had the courage to protect what our family abandoned. You call him servant, but he has shown more honor than all of you combined. Uche slammed his stick. Then prove it, Helena. Let the boy's blood be tested. If you are right, we will have no choice but to accept. But if you are wrong, his eyes narrowed. Then you will be cast out forever. The hall roared with whispers. Helena's heart pounded. She looked at Toby, who clutched her gown tightly, his small eyes filled with fear. She bent down, pressing a kiss to his forehead. Then she rose, facing the tribunal with unshakable resolve. Do the test, she said. I have nothing to fear from truth. The hall erupted into chaos. Some cheered, others hissed. Helena stood calm amidst the storm, her hand never leaving Toby's. Inside, her heart trembled. She prayed silently, not for her reputation, not for her wealth, but for the boy who had already lost so much. For if the test proved him, she would finally silence her enemies. But if it failed, she pushed the thought away. Truth could not fail. She whispered fiercely to herself, blood does not lie. The day of the blood test dawned heavy with tension. The sky itself seemed to echo Helena's heart, clouds thick in gray wind, restless as though Lagos had woken to watch a battle that would decide the fate of more than just one boy. Helena stood in her mansion's grand foyer, dressed simply in a dark gown, her face unadorned except for the fire in her eyes. Beside her, little Toby held her hand tightly. He wore a freshly pressed shirt and shoes that still looked too big for his small feet. His eyes darted nervously around the room, not fully understanding what was about to happen, but sensing the weight of the moment. David stood a step behind them, silent as always, but Helena could see the storm brewing in his eyes. For years he had carried this secret alone. Now the truth would either set him free or destroy everything he had sacrificed to protect. Are you ready, madam? David asked softly. Helena's gaze dropped to Toby. She knelt, brushing his cheek gently. My son, today some people will try to say, you don't belong. But you do. You belong to me, to this family, to the truth itself. No matter what happens in that hospital, remember, Auntie Mama will never let you go. Toby sniffled, his small fingers clinging tighter to her palm. Promise? Helena smiled, though her throat was tight with tears. I promise. At the hospital, the air was thick with whispers. Members of Helena's extended family had gathered like vultures circling prey. Amora arrived in a glittering gown, her lips curled in disdain. Uche leaned heavily on his walking stick, his face grim with determination. Behind them stood cousins, uncles, and aunts, many who had once eaten from Helena's table, but now turned their backs eager to see her fall. Look at her, Amora muttered loudly enough for the crowd to hear. The great Helena reduced to proving herself with a test. What a shame. Helena ignored her. She lifted her chin, her hand, never leaving Toby's. The doctor, an elderly man with kind eyes, guided them into a sterile room. It will be quick, he said gently, just a small prick of the needle. Blood samples will be taken from the boy and compared against your brother's stored medical records. Helena's heart clenched at the mention of Oba. Memories flooded his laughter, his recklessness, his flaws, the love she had once defended blindly, and now the shadow of his sins weighed heavier than ever. Toby sat bravely on the chair, though his legs dangled nervously. When the nurse approached with the needle, he squeezed Helena's hand so hard his knuckles turned white. She bent close, whispering, "Be strong, my son. Just a pinch and it will be over." He bit his lip, winced as the needle slid in, then relaxed when it was done. Helena kissed his forehead, pride swelling in her chest. David stepped forward next. "Take mine too," he said firmly. The doctor frowned. "Sir, that is unnecessary." "It is," David interrupted, his voice trembling but resolute. "If they will accuse me, then let the test silence them too. I have nothing to hide." Gasps rippled through the room. Amora smirked. "Finally, the driver admits his part in this mess." Helena spun on her, her eyes blazing. "Hold your tongue, Amora. This man has shown more loyalty and courage than any of you." The room fell silent. The samples were taken. Now there was nothing left but to wait. The waiting was torture. Days crawled like years. Helena could barely sleep. Every creak of the mansion seemed louder, every shadow heavier. The city's gossip grew wilder. Headlines screamed speculation, billionaire's truth on trial as the boy really blood. Some mocked her, others pitied her, few stood by her. Through it all, Helena clung to Toby. Each night he curled against her, whispering, "Auntie Mama, will they let me stay?" Her chest broke every time. She would hold him tight, whispering fiercely, "They cannot take you from me. Blood does not lie." David carried his own silent torment. Servants whispered cruelly behind his back. Strangers jeered at him in the market. More than once, Helena found him in the garage at night, sitting alone, his face buried in his hands. "David," she told him one evening, "whatever happens, I will not forget what you have done. You are family no matter what lies they spread." His voice cracked. "Thank you, madam. I only hope the truth clears us all." Finally, the day of results arrived. The family gathered again in the ancestral hall. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, every face strained with curiosity or malice. Helena entered with Toby at her side, her steps steady, though her heart thundered in her chest. David followed, his face pale, but his back straight. The doctor stood at the center, a sealed envelope in his hands. He cleared his throat. "The results are here." The hall grew so silent that even the rustle of the paper sounded like thunder. "The test shows that the child Toby shares a direct bloodline with Oba." Gasps filled the room. Murmurs rose like a storm. The doctor continued firmly, his voice cutting through the noise. "He is the biological son of Oba. There is no doubt." Helena closed her eyes, a sob of relief escaping her lips. She pulled Toby into her arms, whispering, "You see, my son, the truth has spoken." Amora's face twisted with rage. "This cannot be," she shouted. "It must be a trick. This doctor has been bought." Uche slammed his stick on the floor, his voice shaking. "Enough, Amora. The evidence is clear. Oba's blood runs in this boy. Whether we like it or not, he is ours." For the first time, Uche's stern eyes softened as they turned to Toby. The boy clung to Helena, but Uche's voice was gentler now. "Welcome, child. You are blood." The hall erupted in chaos again, some relatives embracing the truth, others rejecting it outright. But Helena's voice rose above them all, strong and unyielding. "From this day forward, let it be known Toby is Oba's son. He is my son, and I will raise him not in shadows but in light. You may turn your backs, you may spread your lies, but you cannot erase blood." Toby looked up at her, his eyes shining with tears. "Auntie Mama, does this mean I can stay?" Helena knelt, cupping his small face. "Yes, my son. Not only stay, you will shine. You will carry the name with pride, not shame." The hall echoed with arguments, but Helena no longer heard them. All she saw was the boy in her arms. All she felt was the truth, warm and undeniable, flowing stronger than any storm her enemies could conjure. As she rose holding Toby close, she whispered fiercely, "The battle is won. The world may rage, but truth has triumphed." And in that moment, Helena knew the story of shame was over. The story of redemption had just begun. The tribunal may have ended, but the war was far from over. Though the blood test had proven Toby's lineage beyond doubt, Helena quickly discovered that truth alone was not enough to silence the world. Newspapers carried the headlines with venomous delight: billionaire's nephew found in slums, adopted as son. Some framed it as scandal, others as redemption, but almost none treated it as the private matter of a grieving family. The story spread across Lagos like wildfire, whispered in markets, shouted in bars, dissected in churches. Wherever Helena went, eyes followed her, some filled with admiration, others with mockery. Yet Helena walked with her head high. She had faced lions before in boardrooms. Now she faced them in the streets. But inside her mansion, the weight pressed heavier. Business partners hesitated, deals faltered, and invitations to elite gatherings grew fewer. Prideful relatives stopped calling altogether. Only one thing kept her steady: Toby's presence. One quiet evening, Helena sat in her study papers spread across the mahogany desk. She was reviewing the contracts of her companies, trying to keep her empire from cracking under pressure. Toby crept in holding a crumpled piece of paper. "Auntie Mama," he whispered, "the teacher at school told us to draw our family. This is mine." Helena took the paper gently. A child's drawing, wobbly lines and bright colors. A tall woman in a gown stood in the center, holding hands with a small boy. Beside them was a man in a driver's uniform. Above the picture, written in shaky letters, "My family, Auntie Mama, Papa, David, and me." Helena's throat tightened. She pulled Toby into her arms, kissing his forehead. "It's beautiful, my son. The most beautiful family picture I've ever seen." Later that night, she showed it to David. He stared at it for a long time, his eyes glistening. "He calls me Papa now," he murmured, voice thick. "But I never wanted to take Oba's place. I only wanted to shield him." Helena placed a hand on his arm. "You didn't take anyone's place. You gave him what his own father refused: love." For a brief moment, their eyes lingered, something unspoken passing between them. Helena quickly turned away, steadying herself. She had promised to protect Toby, not entangle herself in feelings that might complicate the battle ahead. But the battle did not wait. A week later, Helena's office board called an emergency meeting. The director's men who had once praised her vision now eyed her with suspicion. "Madam Helena," one of them began coldly, "your personal matters have brought unwanted attention to this company. Investors are pulling back. Some fear your judgment is compromised." Helena sat tall, her hands clasped tightly. "My personal matters are my own. The company remains profitable. Or do you deny the numbers before you?" Another director, younger and bolder, leaned forward. "Numbers cannot protect us from shame. If the market loses confidence, we all lose. Perhaps it is time you step down as chairwoman." The words cut like a blade. "Step down." After years of sacrifice, of building from nothing, Helena's jaw tightened. "You will not remove me. This empire was built on truth and strength. If investors are too weak to stand by me in the storm, then let them go. But I will not step aside." Her voice thundered across the boardroom. The directors exchanged uneasy glances. They knew Helena's will was iron. Still, she sensed it. Her enemies outside had begun poisoning even her foundations within. That evening, Maris visited. She found Helena pacing the lounge, wine glass untouched on the table. "You look tired, my sister," Maris said gently. Helena sank into a chair. "They want me to step down. My own board. They say shame follows me like a shadow." Maris sighed, her eyes sharp. "And will you let them win?" Helena's gaze hardened. "Never. But Maris, sometimes I wonder, am I strong enough to fight everyone? My siblings, the city, the church, the board?" Maris leaned forward, clasping her hand. "Helena's strength is not the absence of fear. It is standing even when fear eats you alive. Do you not see? You are no longer fighting for wealth or name. You are fighting for that boy's future. And for that you cannot afford to lose." Helena's lips trembled, but she nodded. "You are right. I cannot falter. Not now." The storm, however, soon struck closer to home. Late one night, Helena awoke to the sound of Toby crying. She rushed into his room to find him trembling, clutching his blanket. "What is it, my son?" she asked, gathering him into her arms. They said at school that I don't belong here, that I am just a driver's boy, that I'm not really family." His words broke into sobs. Helena's chest burned with fury. She rocked him gently, whispering, "Listen to me, Toby. You are blood. You are my son. Those who mock you do not know truth. Never forget you belong more than any of them, and you will grow to shine brighter than they can ever imagine." Toby sniffled, burying his face in her gown. "Promise." Helena kissed his head fiercely. "I promise, and when I promise, the world itself cannot break it. The next day she stormed into the school, her heels striking the floor like thunder. She confronted the principal, her voice sharp. How dare you allow children to bully him? Do you think his blood is less because his father failed him? Do you think my son will live in shame under your roof? The principal stammered, Madam Helena. No, Helena cut in. There will be no excuses. If you cannot protect him, I will remove him and build a school myself, one where no child is judged by whispers of adults. Her words silenced the entire office. The principal bowed, deeply promising reform. Helena left her fury tempered by resolve. She realized something then: protecting Toby was not only about shielding him from her family, it was about reshaping the world that sought to break him. That night she stood at her window staring at the city lights. Her empire trembled, her family scorned her, her businesses doubted her. Yet in the guest wing, Toby slept peacefully, his breath steady, his future waiting to be carved. David approached quietly. Madam, I fear they will not stop. Your siblings will strike again. They may try to ruin you completely. Helena's eyes blazed. Let them try. I have faced worse storms, but this time I fight not for myself but for him, and for him I will never bow. David looked at her long, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded. If you fight, madam, I fight with you, always. For a moment, Helena felt the strange warmth of unity. She turned back to the window, her voice soft but fierce. The battle has only begun. They thought truth would break me, but truth has set me free. And with truth on my side, I will rebuild everything they try to destroy. Her reflection in the glass seemed older, wearier, but unbroken. And deep within, she knew the storm would rage louder, but she would meet it with fire. Because Toby was not only her nephew, he was her redemption. And redemption was worth every war. The weeks that followed became a crucible of fire for Helena. Though the blood test had silenced the loudest accusations, the battle had shifted. No longer could her siblings deny Toby's bloodline. Now they turned their fury to her, calling her reckless, accusing her of destroying the family's reputation. In every corner of Lagos society, whispers chased her name. Yet inside her mansion, life carried a rhythm of quiet hope. Toby's laughter filled the halls like sunlight streaming through storm clouds. He began to flourish his cheeks, rounder, his smile brighter, his once timid steps growing bold. Where once the boy had been hidden in shadows, now he ran freely in wide gardens, shouting "Auntie Mama" at the top of his lungs, as though the name itself was a shield against the world. But Helena knew peace was fragile. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the city, casting golden light across the mansion's marble floors, David approached her in the lounge. He carried a newspaper folded under his arm. His face was grim. "They're not finished, madam," he said quietly. Helena set down her teacup. "What is it now?" He handed her the paper. The headline screamed, "Driver's scheme, did Helena inherit a lie?" Her lips pressed tightly. She read the poisonous words, claims that David had orchestrated everything, that Neela had been his mistress, that the adoption was nothing more than a ploy to steal wealth. The article was laced with malice, quoting anonymous family sources who insisted Toby was not Oba's son, but David's. Helena's hand trembled as she lowered the paper. "Amora," she hissed. "This reeks of her hand." David's jaw clenched. "Madam, they will stop at nothing. They cannot destroy the truth, so they seek to destroy me. If it protects you, I will step away, leave the mansion, resign as your driver." Helena rose sharply, fury in her eyes. "Don't you dare speak of leaving. If you go, they win. You stood by Toby when the world abandoned him. Do you think I will abandon you now?" For a moment, silence hung between them, heavy with unspoken gratitude and something deeper, neither dared to name. Then Helena turned away, her voice iron again. "Let them write their lies. I will answer with actions, not words." But the storm pressed harder. At the next shareholders' meeting of her company, several partners openly questioned her judgment. "Madam Helena, one declared, you have brought scandal upon this empire. Investors are uneasy. If you cannot put this matter behind you, we fear the company itself will suffer." Helena rose slowly, her presence commanding. "You speak of scandal as though truth is scandal. You fear whispers, but I fear God's justice more. If investors run because I sheltered a child of my blood, then let them go. This empire was built on courage, not cowardice, and it will stand on courage still." Her voice rang through the hall like thunder. Some shareholders lowered their heads in shame, others muttered unconvinced. But Helena knew one thing. She had drawn her line in fire, and she would not cross back. That night, Helena found Toby waiting awake in her bed, his small face troubled. "Auntie Mama," he whispered, "why does everyone hate me?" Her heart cracked. She gathered him into her arms. "No, my son. They do not hate you, they hate the truth. And truth frightens those who live in lies. But hear me, Toby, you are not shame, you are glory. You carry blood, yes, but more than that, you carry promise. One day they will see. Until then, let their hate sharpen you into strength. Toby's eyes glistened. Will you always stay with me? Helena kissed his forehead fiercely. Always. Even if the whole world turns away, Auntie Mama will never let you go. The following Sunday, Helena walked into church with Toby and David at her side. The congregation, once quick to greet her, now turned with mixed expressions, some pitying, others hostile. Whispers rose like smoke as she walked down the aisle, Toby clutching her hand. During the sermon, the pastor paused, his eyes lingering on her. Then in a voice heavy with conviction, he said, "What is family? Is it wealth? Is it pride? Or is it blood, truth, and love? Too often we throw away the innocent because their birth does not suit our pride. But God sees the heart, not the whispers of men." Helena bowed her head, tears spilling silently. It was the first time in weeks she felt the sting of public shame ease replaced by something like hope. After service, an elderly woman approached. She took Toby's small hands into her own and said gently, "Child, do not fear. You are not an accident. You are a blessing. Walk tall." Toby smiled shyly. Helena whispered thank you, her heart swelling with renewed strength. But fate dealt its harshest blow soon after. One evening, Helena received a call from her lawyer. "Madam, your siblings have filed to contest the adoption in court. They claim you were manipulated, that the child was forced upon you by deceit. They demand custody be revoked." Helena's chest tightened. "On what grounds?" "On none that matter in truth," the lawyer said. "But in law they may still cause you grief." Helena ended the call with trembling hands. She looked at Toby playing quietly in the corner, his laughter soft as he built towers from toy blocks. Her heart ached. How many storms must this boy endure? She rose, walked to David, and said fiercely, "Then we fight again. If they want court, they will have court. I will not let them take him." David bowed his head, his voice low but steady. "And I will stand by you, madam, even if it costs me everything." The trial drew crowds like a theater of scandal. Reporters swarmed the steps, cameras flashing, voices shouting questions. "Madam Helena, is it true? The boy is your driver's son? Do you admit the adoption was a scheme? Will you step down from your companies if you lose?" Helena ignored them all, walking tall, Toby's hand in hers. Inside the courtroom, her siblings glared at her like enemies. Amora smirked confident. Uche's face was grim. The judge called for silence, and the trial began. Witnesses came, servants bribed to twist stories, business rivals eager to tarnish her name. Each lie fell like stones upon her, but Helena stood firm. When her turn came, she rose, her voice steady, though her heart burned. "Yes, I am a billionaire. Yes, I could have turned my back as all of you did. But I will not. This boy is my blood. The test has proven it. And if love for my nephew is crime, then let me be guilty." Her words rang through the court like fire. For a moment, silence followed. Then the judge spoke, his voice firm. "The evidence is clear. The child Toby is indeed Oba's son. The adoption was legal without deceit. Custody remains with Madam Helena." Gasps erupted. Helena closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. She pulled Toby into her arms, whispering, "It's over, my son. They cannot touch you anymore." Amora stormed out, fury burning in her eyes. Uche turned away defeated. The rest of the family muttered in shame. But Helena did not look at them. She looked only at Toby, the boy who had carried her through fire, the boy who had given her a reason to fight. That night back at the mansion, Helena sat by her window overlooking the glittering city. Toby slept peacefully in his room, safe at last. David stood nearby, silent but steady as he had always been. Helena whispered into the night, her voice breaking with emotion. "Oba, you left a wound, but God turned that wound into redemption. Your son will not walk in shame. He will walk in glory. And I will protect him until my last breath." For the first time in many years, Helena felt peace, not the peace of silence, but the peace of battle won. She had lost much, her siblings' trust, her reputation in society, perhaps even her position among the elite. But she had gained something greater: truth, love, and the unshakable bond of family. And as the city lights flickered, Helena knew this was not the end of her story. It was the beginning of Toby's, a story not of shame, but of light. In life, wealth and pride often blind us to the things that truly matter. Helena's journey teaches us that blood cannot be erased, and truth, though painful, shines brighter than lies. To stand for love in a world that worships reputation is the bravest act of all. May we all learn to protect the innocent, to defend the weak, and to choose love over pride. For at the end of life, it is not titles or riches that remain. It is the lives we lifted, the love we gave, and the truths we refused to bury. So, dear viewer, what would you choose? Pride or love? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched you, subscribe to our channel for more tales that carry the weight of truth and the warmth of redemption.